and he's sitting on a seat and like literally a t-shirt, sunglasses, and the sun's clearly on him. And then his wife is sitting literally half a foot from him, and she's like hat, scarf, gloves, and snow on the ground. It's like, that's literally what it was like in Belfast during the week. It went from like 16, 17 degrees, and almost like 20 minutes later, it was like 3 degrees. Absolutely bizarre. But anyway, enough about the weather around the world. Let's get on with our weekly webinar. So once again, everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. We're live on YouTube. 30 minutes of quite fast-paced update on what's happening with the property market, and just some tips, some information that will be beneficial to everyone. So today, Asher's joined us once again, head of online social media and marketing, based in London. Morning, Asher.
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well. And of course, my regular co-host, Mr. John Corey, beaming in from the US of A. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Good. So again, let's just get straight into it. Key points for today will be looking at the investor journey and how that happens on a crowdfunding platform. But first of all, we always talk a bit about market overview, what's happening. And I suppose, guys, the biggest news in the last couple of days has been the huge expansion of PD rights, permitted development rights. So I'm sure both of you are well up to date with this. Any initial thoughts on this expansion of PD rights?
Personally, I quite like it. I'm personally.
Go ahead, Asher, if you want to go first, or whoever.
There might be some arguments with this, and I can see from John's face he's ready to go. I quite like this idea. I'm sure obviously it's not the best thing, because it's good to have designated areas where you've got obviously your high street, and the noise from that isn't and the nuisance isn't applied to the nearby residential areas. But at the same time, particularly now, considering the times that we're in, I mean, it doesn't take much to walk down the street and you see how many shops are closed or having, are struggling. And personally, I would feel, if I was a shop owner, this would be kind of a bit of this is a chance, because, you can actually change your business potentially. It gives you the opportunity to adapt with the times and, potentially get a greater value out of the current space that you might be in. You might be contracted in a certain space for a few years, and I think this actually gives people the opportunity to make different uses out of it. So I quite like it.
So I think it's too early to know what's going to happen. Clearly, it's going to be disruptive, but at some level, the disruption's already happened with COVID. The whole shift to online shopping and all the rest of it. As consumers, we're pretty happy to like click, 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 and it gets delivered. So how do you redeploy the assets that are, quote, the high street? And there's this perception, and Ash sort of touched on it, of, there's a high street. It means something, that phrase, where, well, it's a way of containing noise. It's a way of containing foot traffic to one area. It's a shopping mall without a roof. But do we need as many as we have? And do people really want to use them? And it's one of these things, if you don't have enough people using it, it can't sustain itself. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm not going to be actively participating by running up and down trying to find a shop, but I might actually fund deals where someone else is doing that. But we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think what is interesting is that certainly on this change, unlike previous changes, there's been a bit of public pushback from sort of relevant organizations. So the Royal Town Planning Institute, for instance, called it a serious error. The RIBA called it a disgrace. So certainly some of the stakeholders within the world of commercial property and property feel this is maybe a step too far. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out and what changes happen, obviously in the years ahead. Another one which I think is interesting, I want to just touch on today, is the area of affordable housing. So the government have actually been forced into a what you want to call it, a climb down, a step back, reversal. Not unusual for governments, I suppose, but they've been really forced to abandon their plans to sort of raise the affordable housing threshold. So I think the plan was they were going to only enforce affordable housing percentages for like larger developments, and there's been a fair again degree of pushback in that. So it is interesting, John, I think just from a social point of view, that there is this, if you like, mindset that housing has got to remain affordable to the masses, and there is this social conscience a little bit, and it goes with the Church of England, who are one of the biggest landowners, of course, in the UK, or in England. They have actually acknowledged the fact that they need to be doing more as a big landowner, and make land available for more affordable housing. So I find that social conscience aspect quite interesting in that debate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vested self-interest thing where if the Church of England wants to take certain stands, maybe it needs to gain credibility from the masses by helping on the housing front. Fine. When it comes to housing should be affordable, well, affordable to rent, affordable to buy. What does affordable mean? This is not a new topic. When the Queen took the throne, whenever that was, a long time ago, 70% of the whole of the UK rented. It's a country of renters, and yet that's not how people think of it. So this is, how long's a piece of string? So what is affordable?
Asher, from your point of view, your kind of peer
average.
Sorry, what was that, David?
Yeah, I was going to say, from your point of view, in terms of your peer group, we call you sort of a generation renter almost. What has that conversation ever come up among your sort of friends about affordable housing as a way of getting on the ladder?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, look, there's a lot of really incentivized schemes at the moment. I mean, there was definitely prior to 2020, but I think usually the conversation tends to lead to how are we going to do it? It's how is this even possible? Because I guess particularly as a Londoner, it's whenever you read these facts about the possibility of getting on the property ladder, it's actually kind of daunting. I'm personally very pro affordable housing. I mean, I guess in terms of what John was saying, which is what is affordable, I think that really depends on what part, where you are, and what the average living costs are, and what people are generally expected to be earning. But I think I guess being from a developer's standpoint as well, usually things like the Section 106 requirements are seen as like this burden that has been just dropped on the backs of developers. It's kind of like, why are we the ones that have to really take this on? I think it's a great way to, there's something that can be given back to the community, and I think that affordable housing is really important for some people to just be given the chance to actually get on the ladder and make something of a property portfolio from if you're from a background that isn't earning enough. I think it's really needed, and there needs to be kind of a bit more of a push towards it.
Okay, fantastic. Any last comments, John, before we move on?
Other than buy a share.
Exactly. Okay, so we once again will be on Clubhouse at 11 a.m. to 12 today. We're talking about why invest in property through crowdfunding platforms. So that's our topic for today. So if you're on Clubhouse, drop in, join us, up on stage, ask a question, make a point. We'll be glad to hear from you. So we always have our section every week, Real Lives, Real People. We've got a couple of really good people, guests lined up over the next couple of weeks, which we'll be announcing obviously via social media. what we thought we'd do today is actually just have a discussion or almost like a reaffirmation, if you like, of the journey investors have to take before they invest through a crowdfunding platform. And this is something we've been doing a lot of with our raises recently. We've been looking at our processes. How can we improve them? How can we make them better? So if you have any comments or questions, please put them into the Q&A box and we'll be able to answer them. Again, always keen to have interaction. So if I kick this off, and then Asher and John can obviously comment on the different stages. But if we look at it from start to finish, if someone wanted to invest in a project on a crowdfunding platform, they have to first of all become investor ready, and we'll discuss what that means. Then on our platform, we have a coming soon phase, which just lets investors know that a project is coming. Then you move to view deal, where the information can be looked at, live for investment, and then the investment is closed. So we're going to look at each of these just briefly, which will take people through the journey. So in terms of investor ready, and I know, John, from your experience and background in property crowdfunding, this is a new thing to some investors, but it is so relevant because of compliance. If I just quickly explain it, and then I'll pass it over to you. So this is if you like, a threshold that the FCA requires, part of their regulations. And effectively, once you've registered on the platform by providing an email and a name, then before you can actually invest in a deal, you have to pass an appropriateness test, you have to complete Know Your Customer KYC, and you have to do anti-money laundering checks. So those three things have to be done before someone can invest. And John, this is obviously very important in terms of compliance, because it puts the burden almost onto the investor to know what they're doing.
It does at some level. The appropriateness test is what the FCA mandates every investor has to take, so that there's some basic assessment of their ability to understand what they're doing for crowdfunding. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily super sophisticated, but it does mean that they understand capital is at risk and things like that. The other thing I like as a fellow investor or someone using a platform is if there's a discussion in the online forum for, in this case, LEOcrowdfunding.com, everybody's already been through the appropriateness, everybody's already been through the KYC, and everybody's already been through the anti-money laundering before they can invest. So there's a certain level of, I know you're a real person. What I found in a few of the more public platforms is there are fake accounts and other sort of troll-like behavior. Well, I don't need to have that type of debate with someone. If they can at least identify who they are, and if they're not willing to comment with their own identity, like, why do I want to engage with them? So by coming to the platform, knowing people have been through this, I have a certain degree of comfort that the other people there raising questions and making points are real.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no, that's a very, very good point. So it's like I call it a pre-qualified, motivated group of investors. They're motivated because they've taken the time and effort to do the various steps to be investor ready. And they're obviously pre-qualified because they've actually passed the appropriateness test. So they understand this nature of investing, and obviously passed the KYC and AML. So pre-qualified and motivated group of investors, I think, is a good way of describing them. So if someone who is investor ready wants to actively look at investing in a deal, the first sort of category we have is coming soon. And Asher, this is really where we have brought a project onto the platform. We are finalizing the due diligence process, but really we're letting people know it's coming. And I suppose this is where you're heavily engaged in preparing the social media, preparing the marketing, sort of behind the scenes, as it were. So this is sort of your busy time, but any other comments you want to make on this coming soon phase?
Well, I mean, coming soon for me personally is almost like the gun at the beginning of the race, basically. It's a great time to kind of start doing your due diligence, figuring out all the different facts about the project, and really finding out about if it's something that might be of interest to yourself. But it's from a promotional side, it's it's the point where we're almost there. It's almost, it's likely going to come on, and it's a really exciting time usually between us in the office, where it's a new project, and we all get super excited by it. There was actually something that I wanted to mention before with investor readiness. It's also something to consider, is your self-categorization. Being aware that on the platform, in terms of knowing your risk, and also being able to identify what your financial background is being able to basically show that show to us that you're either a high net worth individual, or actually don't have, you are more of a you haven't invested in quite as much. There's the three categories. And yeah, it's something that I realized wasn't actually written in there, but it's good to take note of, because you'll have to do that as well through the process.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So people can designate as either a retail restricted investor, a sophisticated investor, or a high net worth investor, and you'll be asked to do that as part of the registration. So that's a good point. So the coming soon is effectively where we're just letting people know something's coming. The next step is really probably the key step in the process. It's what we call view deal. And this is where all the information is available to review. So there's the pitch pages, there's the equity offer document, the forums are live, so you can interact with the developer. And this is really the part where I suppose Asher is at his busiest, because he's putting stuff on social media. And yeah, just sort of quickly, what sort of things do you do during view? How do you interact with developers? And what sort of are you supplying to investors to help them make up their mind if they want to invest or not?
I think I'm always really just asking myself one question, which is, am I showing everything about the site? I feel like during this stage, it's the point in which not only are people interested in the site itself, but it's about really getting to know the developers, really getting to know what the who the team is behind the project, and also what can we expect? What are their what's their track record, and also we're able to provide more information into the deal itself. So yeah, as you said, this is definitely my busiest time. I think this is also the most exciting time, because it's really when we're properly gearing up for it to come live on the platform. So it's very exciting.
And answering questions. Now, John, the register your interest facility, I know was something that you had actually suggested to us probably about 2 years ago, and we got it sort of implemented on the platform, and it's proven to be a tremendous asset to us as a platform, and indeed to the fundraisers. So you want to just sort of explain your thought process behind the concept of the registering your interest and how that helps the investors and the fundraisers?
So a couple things happen here. Is this is meant to be a stage where things are relatively quiet, so that individuals can't be rushing to pledge money. You don't feel any pressure as a possible investor to jump in and make a full-blown hit the button. I haven't even read the documents, which, by the way, is not only risk for the people investing money, it's a risk for people raising money. We really want everybody to be fully aware. So you get to read the document, you get to interact on the forum if you have questions, and you get to actually put down essentially your email and saying, I think I want to invest, and you pick a number that is appropriate for you. And that allows a person to register their interest. It allows the platform and the people raising money to see if people are more or less ready. Are we building any momentum? It's a way of getting notified as a possible investor, so that, I want to invest in this, but it's not open yet. Am I going to remember? Well, here's a way to set a reminder. And it's a very sort of, I guess, benign way of showing, yeah, I think I'd really be interested. Can we have a further conversation? Can we, interact in the forum? Can I put down my name on the list so I don't miss out? And I was thinking of investing a certain amount. There's no binding commitment. So it's a pre-launch, so to speak, activity where you can start to really start to think it through, let your subconscious maybe process it overnight. But you've put down a marker saying, I am interested. So it really does help eliminate sort of that rush mentality where everybody's rushing for the door and no one knows why.
And it also allows for interaction with some of the investors on that list, because we can email that list specifically and communicate and say, hey, you've expressed an interest, we're going to go live on this date, or we're doing a webinar on this date. So it just means that you're focusing your communication on those who have, if you like, raised their hand to say, I want to be kept informed about this particular project. And I think that is very, very useful. So yeah, the other big thing is that it lets both us and the fundraiser see the traction that has actually come, on the project. So if we take the old woolen mill, we take Duke Street, for instance, our two most recent projects, both of them had registered interest in excess of the maximum raise amount before we went live, which meant, we knew that there was a fair degree of interest in the project. It doesn't mean that everybody invests, but at least we know that a large proportion of that will. So watch some time here. We'll skip through these last two quite on bullet points. Once we've done a view deal pre-launch, we then move to live for investment. On the screen, it will be ready to invest. You'll see it'll turn green, and that means people can then actually make a pledge. Those eagle-eyed regular investors among you will see we've now added a really nice sort of visual as to where the project is in terms of a minimum raise, a maximum raise, and a bar. So if we take this current one with Old Woolen Mill, it's past its minimum raise. It's obviously, you can see the bar's gone beyond that, but there's still a room to go to a maximum. And this is really, I suppose, the fun part whenever we're live for investment and we watch the investors sort of ticking in and the invested amount increasing as we go along. So that bit really takes care of itself. And then invested is when we have either reached the maximum target or the time that was set for the project is complete. And the first thing that happens is it goes to closed, which is the gray. And that means at that point, we're now processing the transfer of funds and also the shareholder agreement. It needs to be sent out to the investors. They get a chance to review the document and then approve it, accept it electronically. And it's only at that point that they're then agreeing to become part of the project. The share certificates are issued, the funds are drawn down, sent to the developer, and only at that point does it then turn blue. You can see the one on the right, it's now turned blue. So for those looking at the current homepage, you'll see some gray, some blue. That's why there's a difference. So that's that. So I don't think there's really anything on that anyone needs to add or comment on, unless there's something particular. I don't think so. So that's really our steps, if you like. Now, there's one step we didn't include in this just for time, and that is some people, before they have a project live or want to go live, they do a case study. And you'll see the orange tab on the homepage is for people who are doing case studies, which is a way of starting to build the crowd, have people register interest in that type of project or that fundraiser, so that there's more information gathered when they decide to go and launch a full project. So that's just something else to be thinking of. And then, of course, you have this sort of post-raise where every month we send out updates. Every quarter we do a live webinar. And these have actually proven very, very successful. John, as an investor, you get these, and actually you're involved in putting these together. And we've had excellent feedback from the quality of our communication to investors. Anyone have any comments they want to make on that before I move on?
No, I think I'm all good.
All good. Okay. So just in the time then to wrap up, I hope that was a useful sort of just quick overview of our various steps and our color codes. There is other dev work happening behind the scenes ongoing. But in terms of current projects, We are live for investment, ready to invest for the old woolen mill. This got off to a phenomenal start last week. It was really exciting to see how fast it reached its minimum raise amount. I know Susie Jenkins, the fundraiser, was very excited. We're messaging back and forward as the target clicked up on the screen. So it is currently live for investment, so you can go on and you can have a look at all the information and make your decision. It's at 88,600. It's actually a bit higher than that from this morning, I noticed. But yeah, so things are going well. Now, Anderson John on this one, obviously, for those who have watched it when it launched and went very quickly to about 67, 68,000, it's perhaps slowed down the last couple of days, but that's quite normal, I think, on a crowdfunding raise. It doesn't,
it's extremely
there is a time lag.
You see a burst of activity because of all that pent-up demand. People have registered their interest and they want to get their investment in so they can go on with their life. And then because this is about 30 days in duration, there are some other people who, I'll get to it. And until that deadline gets close, they won't do anything. It's just how they are. So yeah, you'll see some very sort of, I call it bimodal, where you have two peaks front and back and a gap in the middle, which is normally, it almost doesn't matter whether it's short or long, you're going to have the same gap. So I would say just make it short.
Yeah. Now we may well actually bring it down by about a week because obviously we're already reached the minimum amount. So obviously it just allows Susie and the team to get on a wee bit quicker. So we can watch the space for that. There'll be an email go out if we do that. So yeah, for anyone interested in that, jump on, have a look. The forums are active. I know Susie's been very active answering questions on the forums. So if you have any questions, then fire them in there and Susie will happily reply to you. For those who invested in Duke Street, we're currently in that closed grey tab, if you like. So the shareholder agreement will probably be going out today to all the investors on that. So it's been finalized. So they'll have an opportunity to review and then accept, and then we can move to the drawdown of funds and the completion of the raise. But again, a phenomenal successful raise we did a few weeks ago, 169,000 raised in under 9 hours. And yeah, looking forward to getting this one concluded and getting the project started. So that is really it for today. Short and sweet. We thought it was really interesting just to go through that for everyone today. For those who want to reach out to John and myself, you can do that. Happy to have a brief call with you. If you want to discuss some type of consultancy, again, happy to have that conversation. And again, you can jump over in sort of 5 or 10 minutes, join us on Clubhouse and kick off officially at 11. We usually open a bit earlier and have a chat before then. But certainly encourage you to jump on there. If you're on Apple products and haven't received an invite yet, I do have a couple of invites. So reach out to me and I can get you an invite sent to you and you can and you can join. So no, Asher, you're waiting for the countdown until it gets to Android, so you can join.
Terrible.
John, we're going to have to convert. We're going to have to convert Asher now, John. Get him on to a bit sooner.
Oh, yeah, early adopter versus laggard.
Exactly. So, okay, everyone, listen, thanks so much for joining us once again today. We've got a very good guest for next week and the week after, but we'll put that out on an email. So you'll have to tune in next week to see who it is. It's going to be very interesting, very informative. So thank you for joining today. Hope you have a great day. Hope you find it beneficial. And we'll see you again next Thursday for our weekly webinar. So all the best, guys.